Hi everyone, Scott Bochetti, Product Category Manager of Ceramics and Glass at Creative Materials Corporation. Today I want to talk a little bit about body types. I get asked a lot of questions about tile, both internally and externally, about whether or not this tile is through body or is it glazed, and then if it's glazed, is it a color body glaze or a non-color body glaze? And I just wanted to clarify the actual technical terms by walking you through what the products actually are. And then changing some of our, what we've historically known as like through body to what it actually is intended to be. For this discussion, we're going to be talking only about porcelain tile. Ceramic tile, as you know, is a category that includes both ceramic and porcelain subsets. In this case, we're looking at products that are water absorption rating of 0.5% or less using ASTM C373 or the ISO European standard 10545-3, and when those tests are performed on porcelain tile, the rating will be 0.5% or lower. We're not talking about ceramic tiles like your traditional wall tiles or quarry tiles, which fall between the 3 and 20% range. So when you break down the technical characteristics of porcelain tile, we're using EN 14411, which is really a European method of breaking down tiles. And it breaks it down into A and B groups. A being extruded, think Play-Doh Fun Factory where tiles are pushed through an extrusion machine, versus dry pressed, where you have a punch or a mold, materials filled in horizontally and pressed. That's the more common tile. Dry pressed. Within dry pressed, again, we're looking at water absorption of less than 0.5%, which is Annex G. Or between 5 and 3%, for example, is Annex H. There's also 3 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 20, etc. Right now we're focusing on dry pressed porcelain tile with a water absorption rating of less than 0.5%. There's also unglazed or glazed categories. Notice there's no through body. And that's really the discussion I want to have today, is we're talking about either unglazed or glazed. When you're looking through technical data from a manufacturer standpoint, this is how it will be laid out, right? The technical data will say EN 14411, group BIA UGL for unglazed, or the same thing with the GL for glazed. And I'll show you examples of that coming up. So here on my desk right now, I have various tiles, all of which are porcelain tile. They're all made with the body being raw materials like quartz, feldspar, kaolinite, the typical products that are used to produce tile, but the surface treatments are different on each of these, and I'll explain why in a second. Again, we're used to thinking about through body and glazed, color body, glazed, non-color body. What we really need to think about is glazed, unglazed, okay? So when tile first started being produced from ceramic body to a porcelain body, we started being able to press material with color pigments to be able to have that color go all throughout the surface of the body. So this is an original porcelain tile product that we now consider through body, or that's the name we gave it, because if you look at the front and you look at the back, it's the same raw materials all the way throughout, right? If I were to polish this on the front, it would have a nice shine. It would be this nice turquoise color. If I polished it on the back, it would look exactly the same. There are no glazes on this tile. Technically unglazed, but we refer to it as through body. Okay, that's a little misleading now in the newer productions of glazed porcelain tiles, and I'll explain why. So before I get into that, these here are porcelain tiles with surface decorations. Now, in the past, this was the kind of look that you would have with unglazed. You were limited on aesthetics because in order to get an aesthetic on the surface of a tile, you'd have to glaze it, right? And what would happen there is to get a surface like this, you would have to basically print on a different tile that's on the back. So here's a standard, what we call a gray body tile with a surface treatment that makes it look like a limestone, or a travertine, sorry. You can see here in the corners, there's this white layer that's in between the body and the surface. That's called an engobe layer. The engobe layer is basically a primer that makes the tile white, in order to print the surface treatment on the tile to make it look like something else. So you have two different components here. You have the body of the tile and the surface of the tile separated by that engobe. This is a glazed porcelain tile. This is also a glazed porcelain tile. You can see the surface treatment is black and white, and the back of the tile is gray. Now what happens when this tile chips sometimes is you get that gray color coming through, especially on a non-color body tile. So what manufacturers started doing is coloring the body of the tile. So here is a glazed porcelain tile that's meant to look like a slate. It's got a black surface on it, and they put pigments in the back to have it be a black look. It still has that engobe layer in between, and if you zoom in here, you can see around the edges where it's rectified, you can almost see that white engobe layer coming through. Okay, that is a glazed color body versus a glazed non-color body. Okay, so in the past we would say through body, glazed color body, glazed non-color body. Well, now we have these other products that are over here, similar to this one, but if you look at the back, the body color is the same as the surface, or coordinating enough. These are not, however, glazed tiles, because with the advancements in industrial glazes now, we're able to print glazes directly on the tile without the engobe layer, which allows the glaze to absorb into the body of the tile, making a fully vitrified product. So while it's similar in look to this, technically it's closer to this. When we're talking about the differences between glazed and unglazed, we're really talking about scratch resistance. And it's broken down basically into two different types of testing for scratch resistance. One of them is PEI, which is the Porcelain Enamel Institute. That's a test that's used to test the wear strength of a glaze on the porcelain body type. And ASTM C1027 or EN 10545-7 are the two tests that we use for PEI. And they're broken down into classes 0 to class 5, with class 5 being the most durable. Most of the glazes that are out there now are 4s and 5s and suitable for heavy duty commercial projects. There are some that are in the 3s that you have to be careful, generally darker colors in the range. But what we're looking for there is when the tiles walk down over time, how often or how resistant is that glaze to wearing off over patterns. Obviously the higher the result, the better. For unglazed tiles, traditionally again what we would call through body, but now categorized as unglazed, ASTM C1243 or EN 10545-6 are the tests for abrasion resistance. And what that's doing is actually digging into the surface of the tile until you start to see scratching, right? And the test for through body is exactly the same as the test for unglazed, which means that the products that are technically glazed but considered unglazed are the same durability as through body. So again, looking at the tiles we have on the table here, if you look at our glazed tiles, these tiles here would all use PEI. If you're looking at our through body or unglazed, through body unglazed, which we'll categorize as unglazed, even though the look here are the same, where this uses a PEI to test the scratch hardness of the glaze, because this glaze is absorbed into the body, you now have to use abrasion resistance to find out when this is going to scratch, if at all. So really what this allows for us to have is a wider selection of aesthetics considered unglazed to be used in heavy duty traffic areas. If you're going to use tile in airports or train stations or heavy duty, still recommend the traditional through body tiles, which are again this kind of tile. But if you're looking for tile that has very strong surface against scratching, now look for unglazed as opposed to glazed color body or glazed non-color body. That's our recommendation going forward. It'll open up a world of aesthetics to you with the same technical characteristics as the traditional through body. So the takeaway from this discussion is when to use these products and where. Glazed tile, again, for 90% of the projects you're working on is suitable for use, even if it's a color body, non-color body. If it's a restaurant, if it's a multifamily, convenience stores, pretty typical usage for that material. When you're looking for a more durable product for floors or walls, get out of the habit of saying through body and into the habit of saying unglazed, because it opens up the aesthetic capabilities of these products to allow you to design more with better, more interesting looks. These can be used on the floors of more heavy duty spaces, malls, they can be used in train stations, they can be used in airports, for example. Any place where you're concerned that there might be heavy foot traffic, even if it's foot traffic that's in a queue line of a restaurant, for example, where you would maybe concern about the wear of a darker color glazed porcelain. Now you can use an unglazed with these aesthetics on the surface and have more confidence without having to go with a through body where you're going to lose a little bit of the aesthetic capability. So takeaways are glazed, unglazed, that's the terminology. And for uses, when you're going for more heavy duty uses, go with the unglazed. For your more typical products, you can go with glazed, and it's your choice whether you want to go with color body or non-color body.